All right. Hello, Kako, everyone. Welcome. Good evening. All right, hello, Kako. To open our meeting, I'd like to welcome Lonnie Olsen-Chong to give a play here. Thank you, Lonnie. Encouraged.
Our Father in heaven, as we gather tonight at the opening of our Waimea Community Association, we are grateful indeed, Father, for the opportunity to gather to discuss things of concern to our Waimea community. We're grateful for James and his leadership and for the association and for all those who have joined us. And we ask you to bless any who are traveling here, that they may do so in safety. We ask you to bless us this night, Father, that we may all come together and to support each other as we better our community and everything that happens here. And after this is over, we ask that thou would take us home in safety, is our prayer in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen.
Mahalo. Thank you, Lonnie. My name is James Hustace. I'm the president of the Waimea Community Association. I hope you all had a nice and safe holiday with 4th of July this past Tuesday. It was quite a lively day with events happening all around the island. So I hope you had an opportunity to get out there and enjoy some of the festivities. Let's see. Thank you all for joining us. We're here at Tutu's house this evening as we connect with presenters and viewers in a hybrid setting. So we will have guests online join us, as well as a couple speakers here online as well through the OWL system. As always, I encourage you to follow, like, and subscribe to the Waimea Community Association on our social accounts. You can also find relevant information up on our website at waimeatown.org. We do strive to keep our accounts active, up to date. This evening, we're streaming both to YouTube and Facebook, and this recording will be made available later for your viewing. And at this point, I would like to recognize my fellow board members, our Vice President, Mary Beth Lachek, our Secretary, Nancy Carr-Smith, she's not here this evening, and our directors, Patty Cook, who you saw at the front there, with Riley Smith, David Greenwell, Lonnie Olsen-Chong in the back there, who will be tracking the time for our speakers this evening, Christopher Wong, and Whitney Harvey should be on the front as well there. On behalf of the WCA board, we're grateful for the support shown by you, the community, to hold these meetings. Thank you all for your interest in joining us for our past meetings, for viewing and sharing any of these recordings as well. The Waimea Community Association is a nonprofit organization that strives to promote open participation by all of the Waimea community, develop leadership, support the smart growth of the region. And if you'd like to support the work that we have done and help continue our effort connecting with the community, you are more than welcome to donate and join as a member. Riley and Patty can help in the front with that, or you can visit our website, waimeatown.org, for more information about that. Or even send us an email at waimeacommunityassociation@gmail.com for more information or any questions you might have. Your contributions and your membership allow us to reach out and connect with the community in this setting and support the work that WC has done for the past 60 years. So mahalo nui for your support. We're also grateful for the generosity of Tutu's house and Friends of the Future this evening. It has been important to move our meetings back into an in-person setting while maintaining those virtual aspects that our community has come to appreciate over the past few years now. This evening, we have a number of community representatives and leaders with us here to share and provide updates on policy initiatives and the path forward. We're eager to learn about the work our policy leaders are pursuing and the opportunity to become involved as community members. We'll be spending some time with our county council members and our South Kuala police officers as they provide insight into their community work and ongoing and upcoming events that affect our community here in Waimea. We've also allocated some time towards the end of our agenda this evening to share your questions that you might have for our presenters. We also appreciate community members sending their questions ahead of time, which I have received a couple, so I will try and present those to our speakers at the appropriate time. So for our viewers online, please use the live chat to pose your questions, and we'll do the best that we can to present them to our attendees here. And for those of you in person with us, just please make yourself known, raise your hand, and I'll do the best I can to give you that time and be acknowledged to have your questions addressed as best as possible. All right, so to start things off, I'd like to welcome up Captain Evangelista, and then online we have our community police officers, Justin Cabantine and Ansel Robinson.
Thanks,
Welcome,
James.
Captain. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Welcome to National Ice Cream Month.
Yeah.
We'll start off with Justin. He'll give us the traffic trend report and some announcements, and then we'll follow up with Officer Robinson, who will talk about our crime report. So Justin, why don't you take it away?
Thank you. Fortunately, we're not gonna have a coffee with a cop. We're kind of stretched out, but our newsletter was sent out today for our subscribers. So go ahead and please take a look at that. July 8th, Officer Robinson will be at doing a beach cleanup, and that's a community event. So if you guys want to go down there, help them out. It's with Keep Puerto Beautiful. And the last announcement I have is the fishing derby coming up. That's going to be July 15. Thank you for all of you who have contributed to the prizes. Last year was a success, and I think this year is going to be even a bigger success, and the kids are going to be happy. But I'll get right into the traffic trends for the month of June. Our South Koala officers issued a total of 706 citations. 148 of those were for speeding, 91 for moving, 39 seatbelt citations, along with 2 child restraint citations. 252 regulatory citations were also issued and 90 unsafe. On top of that, there were 58 mobile electronic devices, cell phone citations issued, and 3 DUI arrests were made as well. There were 10 major traffic collisions for the month of June, and no fatal accidents in our district. They also initiated 10 abandoned vehicle calls, investigations, and they did respond to 52 reckless driver calls within our district. So that's a quick snapshot of the traffic trends in our South Koala district, and I'll go ahead and hand it to Officer Robinson.
Hello, everyone. So I'm going to take over the crime stats here. Really quick, touching on that beach cleanup. If anyone's interested, it's going to be down at Kauai Harbor, and Keep Puerto Beautiful is doing a great job. If you can't make this one, look forward to some of their future cleanup events as well. All right, for crime, last month, we're looking at 6 assaults, 1 burglary, 7 criminal property damage cases, 11 thefts, 6 of which are considered or would be retail thefts, no robberies, and a noticeable uptick in vehicle theft. So we have 9 UCPVs, or attempted unauthorized control propelled vehicles, and 5 unauthorized entries into motor vehicles. And we give a little bit of better breakdown of how this looks in our newsletter. So I do encourage you to get on our list if you're looking forward to seeing that. But the key takeaway from this is it seems to be a national trend around this time of the month that there is an uptick in car theft. So please lock your doors, keep your keys, and during these hotter months, it's tempting to leave windows open and everything. But if you leave it open too much, it makes a pretty vulnerable target. So be cognizant of that. And then I'm going to turn it back over to the captain.
Thanks, you guys. So the one burglary that we had last month, interestingly, it did not involve theft, like you would think, somebody breaking into a house to steal items. That wasn't what this was. Somebody entered a construction site or business and graffitied the inside. So it's pretty interesting. It appears to be kind of a one-off. We haven't had any more reports of that. Thankfully, sadly though, lack of witnesses, no helpful leads as far as video surveillance or anything. So we ended up having to suspend that investigation. We don't have anything else to work on. But what would be really helpful to, especially our business community, invest in good surveillance equipment, because a lot of times that's your only witness. These things happen in the wee hours of the morning and no one's awake, no one's around. What I want to close with tonight is, and you folks, you may have heard about it already, even though we're not having traffic safety meeting this month, is State Highways called today. They are going to start the paving project from, I believe, Ohola out to the golf course road. So that stretch of highway from Pu'unani out just past Lakeland, they're going to start that paving project next week. They anticipate a start date of July 10. Now, what State Highway shared with me is that they are going to be staging their equipment off someplace around the Mealani experiment area, Mealani experiment station, off the highway. And then they're also going to be routing their supply trucks through back roads. Because if their supply trucks get stuck in the traffic that's caused by the paving, then the paving takes even longer to do. For example, if they're waiting on an asphalt delivery, that paving machine is just sitting there idling while they're waiting for the truck, which could be stuck in traffic. So they're going to be rerouting those trucks along the whatever back roads they can. What we can expect as the motoring public is delays. So be prepared for that. Adjust your commute times. They have shared with me, though, that they have the ability to monitor traffic levels in real time and provide feedback to their traffic control people. So it may seem like you're sitting there for nothing, but we want to reassure you that somebody is actually monitoring this and trying to adjust traffic flow to get people moving. It just may be that the Waimea side of the project is more backed up than the Honoka'a side of the project, so they got to empty out Waimea town. That may be why you're sitting while it seems like forever while everybody else is moving. But they have signage up and they have shared it on their website and whatnot. So just be aware. I don't remember how long the project's going to take, but we're in for some traffic for a little while. Yeah. Any questions? No? Oh, yes.
How can I sign up to get your newsletter?
Oh, that is an excellent question. I will sidebar with you in just a second.
Thank you,
Anybody
Captain.
else? Oh, all right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Captain. Appreciate you in your office. Thank you so much. And just to kind of touch on what Captain said, and I was gonna save it for a little bit later, but thank you, Captain, for bringing it up about the paving between Pohola and Mud Lane. I do have a little bit more information on it actually that I'll share here that I got from State Highways. And yes, the South Carolina Traffic Safety Committee is not gonna be meeting this month. They'll meet again in August at this location, second Tuesday of the month, 5 o'clock here. And you can visit me about that or send me an email if you have more questions about sort of how to connect there. So the paving effort, from what I'm informed, working hours have been authorized between 7 a.m. and 5:30 p.m. So that's kind of their work day. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're gonna be paving starting at 7 or until 5:30, but that's kind of what they've been authorized to work in between. Also between Monday through Saturday. So it could be a 6-day project out there. And they will be closing one lane of traffic during work hours. So as Captain mentioned, you do want to expect those delays when traveling through the east side of Waimea. And yeah, you've seen the message boards up on the road, I hope. But it's starting pretty soon. This was something that's been kind of working its way a little bit to see if there's any availability for funds, and that project's moving forward now. And yeah, so I'll kind of leave it there for that.
Excuse me, James, what was the start date again?
Start date, their staging start date is Monday, the 10th, but they may not start paving until Wednesday and start their actual physical work. Yeah.
Are they gonna grind back and repave over it, or is it?
I don't know the entirety of the work, like what they're actually physically doing in the space, but with the contractor reaching out to us, traffic safety, as well as Harry Takuye with State Highways, we'll have them in that conversation at our August meeting and see what's going on, because they're allowed to work through up until December. That's really kind of the projected time of work from now until December. Yeah, so that's the allowed time to work. Yeah, so I'll shift gears if that's okay. And I'd like to welcome up our council member, Cindy Evans, to provide a brief update on her work at the county council and then some things she's doing around the district. Welcome, council member. Thanks for joining us this evening.
Oh, good evening, everybody. Hi, everybody on TV. Can they see me here?
Yes, again. Yeah, as soon as you start going.
Okay, all right. Well, anyway, aloha, everyone. And great to see you all. So many I know and some new faces too. And I think the first thing I'm going to say is the question you always ask, which is the reservoir. So those who've been here every month know that you care about that reservoir. Over by Merriman's, you've seen the sign. It says they're going to fix the reservoir because we had an earthquake and it they shut down that reservoir and it's been sitting there, seems like forever. Well, I was told today that the story is that they designed the repair. They put out to bid, they awarded the contract. After the contractor, they went up, inspected the reservoir again, and there was a problem that was created because it took so long that now the joints have been compromised. So they're re-bidding it out to do it again. The contractor who was awarded the bid was unwilling to negotiate, or they couldn't reach an agreement because they were gonna modify the contract. So they said, okay, we gotta put it out to bid again. So it's now out to bid again to fix that reservoir. So it's in process, but I want to talk to them more next week and get a little bit more detail about how quickly they think they're gonna get that. And really, what does it mean for us as a community to get that back online? Don't know yet, so I need to talk to them a little bit more. But the good news is I got an answer for you. Okay, so that was really good. Heather Kimball, the chair, is on her way. I left 15-20 minutes early. We were in a meeting to come here and she's behind me. And so Danielle, you don't see her here, but she's on her way. And she'll be giving a presentation about a bill that just passed the council today called OSCER, which is the Office of Sustainability, Climate Action, Equity, and Resilience. And she and Danielle will tell you all about it today. So today was council day, and we were able to acknowledge a fireman that went beyond the call of duty, and we gave him an award today. We also recognized our state championships from Waimea High School, the golf champions that are going to go to the national. And then we passed some resolutions, one that I think might be of interest to you, and that is the federal government is thinking of passing a law that would preempt the cities and counties and the states from the placement of cell towers and broadband in our community. And what we did is send a resolution. We're joining other states, county mayors and county council people across the US is trying to tell our congressional delegation, please don't do that. Don't preempt us having a say and a conversation about where cell towers and broadband goes in our community. And so I hope you support that. I hope you agree that home rule and where they put up cell towers and broadband and 5G, and we might someday go to 6 or 7G, who knows, that we have a say in that. And so right now it's at Congress, it's in the US representative side, and we'll see if it gets to the floor for a vote. But at this point in time, we're supporting home rule on this issue. I have to tell you, I've been 6 months on this job. And I think the thing that I've learned the most is that getting legislation passed, working on issues for you takes a lot more time than I would hope for, but there is a process. There is a rhythm to this, and it's constant. And so if we have issues in the community, if we're working on stuff, it does happen, but it doesn't happen as quickly as we want. There is frustration in that. But the thing is, there is always progress in that. I think Doug Adams will tell you, Doug is in the back, and he's the director of research and development. Great things going on in his department. I think that the mayor's coming out. He's going to bring the whole group out, and you're going to hear what each one of the directors are working on. I think that's really exciting that you get to meet him, meet his different cabinet people, and they're going to tell you a lot about what they're working on. What's happening in Waimea, lots of stuff, I think. The newest thing, and I hope you invite him out, is I just met the new director of mass transit. And I've asked him to meet, we're going to set up a meeting with our principals up here in Waimea, and we're going to talk about how the public transit system, we know now, does transport many of our children out of Hawai'i and Kapa'au go to our schools in Waimea, and they actually ride the mass transit bus to get to our schools here. And so how does the mass transit help and supplement what the public school system does to get our kids to the schools? And so he's new. I invite you, James, to have him out. I think you'll all be pleasantly surprised of his experience and knowledge, and You know what we do in Waimea when we do traffic, I know we're gonna have a lot of problems with one lane, but eventually we're gonna have to work more on transit and moving our smaller, maybe heli-on buses around Waimea. He's very open to regional bus, you know, moving people around in different and smaller regions. That's what he's used to. He comes from the Portland area for 25+ years doing transit. So he worked out in these rural communities outside of Portland, small ones. And so yeah, I think he brings a kind of a fresh perspective. So anyway, he just came on board in the last month. And then we got our new PTA on the here end, and we were just talking about the convoys and traffic and Waimea Road. And that's one thing I'd like to come back. Invite me back, and I do think we have to talk about the intersection of Queen Kamano Highway and Waimea Road, and I think there's gonna be some huge changes coming our way in the next few years, and how do we as a community engage in that conversation? You know, but yeah, we'll have to do that, but thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Councilmember.
Can I just make a comment, Cindy? Transportation, Waikoloa, in Village. There was no transportation available for families to take kids down to Kealakekee High School last year for about half the year. They really need help with mass transit.
That's me. Thanks for telling me that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, and as Councilmember mentioned, we have Mr. Adams with RNG for the county here in the audience, as well as our new Apakula Training Area Commander, Lieutenant Colonel Tim Alvarado. Thank you for joining us here this evening, sir. All right, welcome, Councilmember. Good to see you. Well, so as you probably noticed, a subtle notice here amongst a couple of our board members, we are dedicating our nonprofit spotlight to our annual Waimea Christmas Parade in December, or Waimea Christmas Twilight Parade, excuse me. So with less than half a year away and planning efforts ongoing, Lonnie Olson-Chong is our guiding effort, guiding our volunteers, our community leaders to improve upon excesses of the past years. And so with that, I'd like to welcome up Lonnie Olson-Chong to speak about our Waimea Twilight Christmas Parade and provide some updates and looking ahead. Thank you, Lonnie.
Mahalo. Christmas in July. Why not? With this much time, we would be well prepared come Christmas, right? To set the mood tonight, we've donned our Santa hats. The refreshment served tonight is an eggnog creme, pote de creme. And we have a fresh carrot cake with a mango frosting. And we have Christmas gift wrapped fresh raspberry friands, which is like a sponge cake to die for. I found it. My sister from another mother, Tony Reed, is really good at stuff like this. I just give her a little bit. She runs with the ball. She's awesome. I'm here on behalf of the Waimea Twilight Christmas Parade. We are in our 63rd year. How scary is that? I feel like I've been doing this at least 50+ of those years. I remember starting on this committee when I first moved here in 1968. Before long, my husband joined the committee, eventually my children and my grandchildren. Now here we are working a parade with committee of volunteers for the community and 4 generations of my family. They like to get voluntold every year. They don't get to volunteer, they get voluntold. Ask them, they'll tell you. But I'm so thankful for my family and all of our volunteers on the Christmas Parade Committee, because without volunteers, it would not happen. Like everything else, it costs money to have a successful event. The parade is no different. In fact, our cost has increased tremendously due to the necessary requirements to close the roads. 30 years ago, closing the road, the only road through Waimea was a cinch, not a problem. Everybody was fine. They would stop wherever they were, watch the parade, and then be on their way after the parade was over. We probably operated with 4 to 5 special duty policemen at that time, I think maybe, and with 5 narrator stations. And a narrator station, if $200 was the cost to cover a narrator station. And the route was short. It went only from Church Road to Parker Ranch Center way back then. Today, it's very different. With the extended route, we require a minimum of 12 to 14 special duty officers with a total of 18 narrator stations this year. We had 15 last year. We have 18 this year. Requires a tent, sound system, tables, chairs, and for many, a generator for power. We're talking $650 for each narrator station. And we appreciate people like Pohakuloa Training Area who sponsor their own narrator station and bring their own sound and everything. That helps us with that cost. The last thing we want to do is to have to cancel our parade due to lack of funds or volunteers to help run this. I was talking to someone who used to be on the Hilo Parade Committee. There is no more Hilo Christmas Parade just because of that. No funds and no volunteers anymore. If we canceled our narrator station, sure, we'd save a lot of money. However, we'd put pressure on the entries to provide sufficient signage so everyone would know what they're about, who they are, and get their message across to people, which is a lot more work on them. And this would probably be a big reason for people not to participate, in my opinion. And without participants, guess what? Yeah, no parade. Our parade has made national coverage over the years. We even made the Truckers Diesel magazine several years ago. We did, and the caption was, "Move over, Rose Bowl, here comes the Waimea Christmas Parade." And that's true, I tell you, as something that we really should be proud of. But we need everyone's help to keep our Christmas parade alive. I am committed to do all that I can for as long as this body will let me. My children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren are committed to keep it going. This is our way of giving back to our community, our town, our island. Give $1 or two, or 3 or 4. Let's ask our friends to give $1 or 2 or 3 or 4. Let's all work together to support our annual Waimea Twilight Christmas Parade. Donate as we pass the basket tonight, or make a check payable to the Waimea Community Association with a note Christmas Parade. Join us as we exemplify our theme this year, E Lauhoi Mai Nava'a. Everyone paddle the canoe together. Whether we're in a canoe for our family, for our town, for our community, for our island, we all paddle that canoe together. This is the flyer that you'll see around town. You can take one to put up in your business and share with others, simply asking everyone to donate whatever they can to help the parade. Mahalo and Merry Christmas.
Mahalo, Lonnie. We are excited to work with our community partners to host this annual event, providing a fun, safe, and festive opportunity for us as we welcome in the holidays together. As Lonnie mentioned, it does take a great deal of planning, preparation, partnership building, fundraising to bring this annual event together. And so if you're interested in learning more about this year's parade or ways to support it, this QR code will take you to the Waimea Community Association specific page about the parade and a way to donate online as well. And if you are so inclined to give a little bit tonight, we really appreciate that. It will specifically be given for the parade and that effort. And our board member Whitney will be coming around with a little basket if you're so inclined. So thank you for your generosity. I really appreciate all of your support, everyone. Mahalo. And as we kind of move on through the agenda here a little bit, I have a couple of community announcements. Take your time, Mary Beth. And we have a couple I'm going to go through here about upcoming things in the community that are happening this month. I just wanted to spotlight and highlight some of those as well. So the first one here is actually tomorrow. This is 2 events here, both at Kahilu Theater. The first one is an open mic night at Kahilu, the top one there, bring it. And then the bottom one is a Hawaiian glam rock opera at Kahilu Theater. And that's a Saturday evening. So if you're interested in either of those events, you can find more information on the Kahilu Theater website there. Next up, we have, and the officers did mention a couple of these. I just wanted to throw up some graphics for this. This is the beach cleanup effort at Waihai Small Boat Harbor South, put on by Keep Puoko Beautiful and the South Guala Reef Alliance. So there's some information on there. If you're interested in supporting this is on Saturday, this Saturday. There's an email there at keeppuokobeautiful@gmail.com if you want to donate, if you want to sign up, RSVP, those sort of things. There's information there. And there's a lot of details here that a lot of this stuff's also posted up on our Facebook page, on our social accounts. So if you miss it here, you can always rewatch this video or catch it up on some of our social accounts there, specifically Facebook. Next up, just a reminder, Annunciation Community Food Pantry. They're having 2 distribution days in the month of July, July 11th and the 25th. And there's a new time. It's 8 a.m. that starts now. If you're used to the old time, it's now at 8 a.m. And it's really until supplies last. So just kind of keep that in mind. Next up, we have This is also the graphic for the Keiki Fishing Derby that our officers did talk about. And there's an email, there's a phone number if you were interested in learning more about it. This is happening on Saturday, July 15th. So for our Keiki in the community here, and mahalo to the Friends of First Responders for kind of pulling this together and offering this opportunity for our families. Thank you, Mary Beth. Next up, we have, this is on Wednesday, July 19th. So kind of moving through the month. This is Friends of Thelma Parker Library, and also in partnership, of course, with the Hawaii State Public Library System. They have an annual membership meeting. This is particularly for Thelma Parker Memorial Library. So this is their annual membership forum and meeting. And Alice Jenkins is the point of contact there with her phone number on the screen if you're interested in learning about future library events and supporting our Waimea library. And as always, we have an ongoing Food Truck Friday here in Waimea, thanks to some of our dedicated community members on Friday, July 21st at the Keck Observatory headquarters. And more information is also posted on their social accounts as well. And we do try and share as much as we can too. Thank you, Mary Beth. And also at the Thelma Parker Memorial Library, this is the Seeds of Knowledge Community Fair. This is happening on Saturday, July 29th. There are a lot of different groups, and you probably can't read them all here, but there are a lot of different participants and community groups that are involved in this and try and create an engaging event for families and for our children in the community. We'll be there for Waimea Community Association. You're probably seeing us wear these hats as well. But yeah, so all are invited. It's a free event. There'll be activities for the children from 10 to 2. This is an ongoing one. This just kind of went live within the last week or two, but this is an opportunity for you and the community to comment and give feedback on a regional wastewater master plan for the South Kohala district. So the QR code will take you to where you can provide feedback and comments or ask questions, but this is really identifying, and it'll take you to the website that shows you a lot of information about all the cesspools in our district, ones that are really the category 1 cesspools, really along our coastal areas that need to be addressed post haste, of course, and then kind of our tier 3, I think they call it, more up in our Waimea and upper Mauka areas. So there's more information about that and an opportunity to provide some feedback and learn about the plan and some insight there. And then what was my next one? I think well, before we go to this one, sorry, but yes, Councilmember did mention that Mayor Roth will be in the community in Waimea. That will be for Tuesday, July 25th. I think the location is still yet to be determined given the potential turnout that there could be. So look out for information on that. We'll post it up on our social accounts as well when we hear more. But he was doing a number of meetings around the island, and he started in Kona on the west side of the island and is working way, I think, North Kohala next Tuesday, and then Waimea at the end of the month.
What was the date again?
July 25th. Yeah.
Do you know the time?
5 o'clock. Yeah. Yeah. And then we didn't mention this at our last meeting. This is a save the date for Old Hawaii on horseback. So just kind of keep that in your calendar. If you haven't put it in there, put it in there. This should be an exciting event up in Waikiki. So please look for information on that when we have more to share. And I think the last save the date I have is for the Waimea Fall Festival. So another one looking out a little bit further in October. This is a Saturday, October 14th. Kind of what has become our annual fall festival in the community here. This will be at the Kalani Shudi District Park that day for activities, food trucks, you name it, kind of back to that, getting the community together for the fall. And as I kind of mentioned, you know, a lot of these activities are up on our Facebook page, and we're trying to share as more information as we can. This other one we had as well, and it's also in the officers' email that goes out, the distribution email that goes out, but some information about animal control services, and that's no longer under HPD, but they're kind of their own division now, if you're looking for more information on that. Thank you, Mary Beth. I think that was all of them. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. And yeah, so we do try and keep these, and just want to highlight some that are up and coming, and then ones to look ahead for in the future. And then as always, if you're part of an organization or an affiliation that has an event or a programming event, then we're happy to share them out and distribute it at these meetings or online as best as we can. So thank you for your interest in that, and don't hesitate to reach out to us. Okay, so as we move into our main portion of the evening for this agenda, our next two guests will be providing some insight into future and current plans that address climate change and our ability to adapt to our shifting environment. These efforts include finding a balance between economic growth, protecting our environmental assets, and achieving social and cultural equity as we strive for the sustainability goals and building resilient communities. So first, I would like to welcome up Chair Heather Kimball. Chair Kimball was the introducer of Bill 48, which did pass today.
Look, it's so fun.
Thank you, Chair. Please take it away.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we have your slides, and so just let us know when.
Great,
Yep.
great. Has anybody ever had a day where they perfectly timed everything out to just one thing after another and it's all gonna be perfect?
No.
Great. Today you got it planned out and then it starts to slide right at the beginning. That was today for me. So I apologize for being a little late. I hope Councilmember Evans was able to give you an update on some of the other activities we've been engaged in at the council. And I literally had 5 minutes to adjust these slides from a presentation that I gave in Washington on OSCER. And so I highly suspect there may be some slides here about Hawaii that you guys like all know those facts, but I was sharing it with these folks. But anyway, I did want to have some visual aids for you tonight. So as James mentioned, and thank you as always for the invitation to come up and speak to you tonight. Councilmember Villegas, I introduced Bill 48, which is a bill that does two things. It creates the Office of Sustainability, Climate, Equity, and Resilience, which from here on out, I'll refer to as OSCER. In addition to creating the office, and I'll talk more about that in a minute, it creates a new chapter in the county code, chapter 37, that's specifically dedicated to these areas. And one of the things that I really appreciated about the Waimea Community Association notice about tonight is that some of these terms, particularly these terms in the title of our office, they are thrown around a lot. And they don't really have clear meaning, or at least a meaning that we agree on together. And that actually is one of the things that is behind the creation of this office, is that we need to coordinate efforts. And that starts with agreeing on these terms. So what I thought I would do is actually, if we can go to the next slide, go through the terms that we have defined in the bill as part of this chapter. These were co-created between my office, research and development, the planning department, the finance department, corporation council, and we looked to, various other sources of information that's already out there and came up with these really great definitions on the different aspects of OSCER. And so I won't read them through, but what I like about this is I hope that you can pick out the nuance. So when we're talking about sustainability, we're talking about all pieces of sustainability. We're not just talking about the environmental piece. We're not just talking about the economic piece. We're not just talking about the human and social piece. We understand that there's a confluence of these things, and what we're seeking is harmony, right? That's what sustainability means. Next slide, please. Equity. Equity is really something that we wanted to make sure was different about OSCER. Why? Because there has been a history when we talk about sustainability, when we talk about climate change, to not think about the cumulative impact of other influences on those decisions. And so we wanted to highlight two things. One, equity, making sure that we're thinking about those different influences and how they impact individuals as we make decisions, but also from the environmental justice standpoint, that we are including all individuals in the conversation in a meaningful way, and that the laws and regulations that we develop affect everybody equitably, right? And the difference between equality and equity, equality, we're treating everybody the same with no regard for other things that may be factors in their life. But when we talk about equity, we're talking about those collective impacts, and we're adjusting based on that. So these are the definitions of equity and environmental justice. Next slide, please. One of the key reasons we wanted to make sure we highlighted equity and environmental justice, not only in the definitions and in the activities of the OSCER office, but we wanted to highlight it in terms of the Justice 40 initiative. And the Justice 40 initiative is something that came out of the Biden administration with the Inflation Reduction Act and the bilateral infrastructure law. And what the Justice 40 initiative does is it says that all of these monies that are going to be dedicated towards infrastructure, climate change, sustainability, building resilience should 40% at least take into account service to Justice 40 individuals, people that are lower or moderate income or have those other cumulative impacts. This is the map of our island and the areas that the EPA currently identifies as Justice 40. I think you guys would all agree with me that there are pockets in here that are not represented because of the overall average incomes, for example, for the particular census blocks. But we have a number of things to consider in our county. We have almost 50% of our families in our county that are ALICE, asset limited, income constrained employed. Of those, about 15% are below the poverty line. There was a report that Doug's Angela Adams Angela Thomas, thank you. Angela Adams, another friend of mine. Angela Thomas gave from R&D the other day. 1 in 4 children is that right, Doug? Is it 1 in 4 are food insecure, right? And it's not only the economic issues, but then there's also the historical social injustice issues, right? And particularly with our Native Hawaiian population, they're more likely to be incarcerated, they're more likely to have bad health outcomes, they're more likely to be living in poverty, and so forth and so on. So there's a number of justice issues, I think, in our county that are not exactly reflected by this EPA Justice 40 map, but we wanted to highlight this as part of OSCER, and that's why it's part of the title. It's not just something that's an afterthought, but it's actually right up there in the title as an important consideration. Next slide. Resilience, again, looking at things from a systems perspective, looking at things holistically. It's not just an environmental issue. It's not just an economic issue. It's how these shocks and stressors that we can't anticipate, how do we react in a way that is going to have minimal impact and allow us to minimize damages, both socially, economically, and for the environment. So that's how we've defined all these terms. You go to the next slide, please. So what I think that.
Do you want to see the next slide?
I want to see the next slide. Did I miss one? I missed really important one. I missed climate.
Oh,
Did we pass the slide or did
I don't think we had a climate slide.
Oh,
We had a climate slide. Okay.
I was gonna say, okay, we went from sustainability to equity. We're missing this.
I think I double clicked.
Okay,
double clicked.
Sure. It's you, not me.
It's me. It's
Okay,
me.
okay, climate, yeah, okay, I was hoping nobody noticed that we didn't spell it right because we.
I didn't.
Yeah, okay, good. Climate, I don't really need to go much into this, I don't think, with you folks here, because we already know here in Hawaii, we are on the front lines of this. And all of these pictures are from Hawaii. They're the different types of impacts that we're already seeing. I know you guys have your experiences with fire. You're no stranger to fire up here. That one I picked specifically because it's Pauwilo. Pauwilo is the rainforest. We have so much fuel up there. It was dried out for so long. That fire moves so fast. And one of the things that we've been talking about in the climate change circles is it's not really climate change that we're talking about. It's kind of weirding. Things are just more likely to be flooding, more likely to be drastic storms, more likely to be periods of drought, coral bleaching instances. We're no stranger to climate. So I don't think I need to go into too much detail about what we're talking about there. Okay, now we can skip through here. Okay, great. It's actually kind of good because those pictures are the bad news, right? I do want to highlight the good news, which is we have a lot of great things going on here in our county. First of all, we have, the distribution of renewables. We are at what percentage now with AES?
With AES,
Actually, wasn't on, like, would be over 50 now. It would be
You're over 50%.
under the new way the legislature
Calculates.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we are making significant progress on the renewable sector for our energy production. Thank you to our HELCO team. We're doing a really good job, especially in the last year. We've had a 40% increase in the adoption of electric vehicles. So we're seeing a lot of work there. This work actually comes from my master's thesis, which was, I don't know if I've mentioned to you guys, but I was actually involved in climate science before becoming a politician. And one of my master's thesis projects was to look at the amount of sequestration that was happening across our island and pair it up with the estimates of greenhouse gas emissions. Because we are such a big island and we have so much forest and there's so much green stuff growing, we're actually at 80% towards neutrality. The tricky thing is that 20% is really, really hard to get, right? Yeah. And the other tricky part is this is our county, Honolulu's at 3. So yeah. The other good things that I wanted to talk about is that we've got a lot of people working in this area. And I just put Great Hawaii Green Growth, Aloha Plus Trail Lounge up here as one example, but there are a number of great organizations out there that are working in the sustainability, climate, resilient space. And that gives me a lot of hope that we have a lot of expertise. We also have a lot of data, and I think we're going to hear from some of our one of our friends from the state about some of the information they have, but we have a tremendous amount of information spatially across the island about what we need to do, what the current status is. It allows us to study things in a very meaningful way and make good projections about what the various actions will result in. And then finally, I picked a picture of Galea just because, it represents a lot of things to a lot of us, but for me, one of the things that it represents is that resurgence of traditional knowledge and the fact that we really wanted to understand that there was a place for that in policy, that we needed to bring Indigenous wisdom, place-based decision-making into policy, and the resurgence we've seen in the cultural aspects of the Native Hawaiian culture being included was something that was really important to include in our legislation. I think that's something that adds real value to what we can do here in our county. So I'm optimistic, I'm hopeful. And I said before, I was a climate scientist before I became a politician, and part of the reason I became a politician was out of frustration, right? It's like, oh, come on, you guys, you see all this stuff, let's do something. But the other part of it was deeply personal. I think I've told this story before, but I'm a mom. I have 4 daughters. My oldest one, believe it or not, is almost 30. She's gonna be 30 in August. I had her very young. But she called me, and this was a few years ago, and she said, my husband and I were talking about whether or not we want to have kids. And we really struggled in the sense that we don't know what kind of world they're gonna have to go through. And that it's gonna be on fire, that was, and as a mom, not ready to grandma, but mom, I'm heartbroken that this is a consideration, right? At the time, she was asking my advice as somebody in the climate space. She said, what do you think? You're gonna figure this out. I said, you know what? I think we are. I really do. I'm a cockeyed optimist. I have a tremendous amount of hope that we can actually address these problems. But I think we have to be preemptive, proactive, and we have to be thoughtful about lifting everybody up together. Because I think that the consequences of these activities, climate change, building resilience, they can be very unequally applied. And so it's very important to make sure that we're lifting everybody up, including everybody, or some of us suffer very much more than others in response to it. So with that, got elected. That was step 1. Took me 3 tries. Next slide, please.
Now that it just went past the other, okay.
Okay. You're being very precious. I appreciate it. The next phase was diagnostic. And as I've said before, we have a lot of data, we have a lot of information, not just here locally, but globally about what we need to do. How do we need to build resilience, create sustainability, address climate change? And so the diagnostic was, okay, what are the barriers? What is in the way of actual implementation? And as we were going through that diagnostic, a couple things stood out. First of all, R&D, Doug Adams, and I've asked Doug to come to help answer questions later when we get to that portion. Him and his team, they've been doing a fantastic job of, getting projects started, identifying actions. They've been in the process, along with the planning department, of developing the integrated climate action plan. But what does it take to identify, once they've identified some of the actions we need to take, what does it take to scale it and transmit it to the other departments? And the thing is, the other departments in the county, they're willing to do these actions, right? They're willing to support, they know it's important, but there's a lack of technical ability, there's a lack of funding, there's a lack of time, there's a lack of capacity. So that was one area that we identified. Another thing was that there are, as I said before, a lot of people working in this space, but they're not actually as well connected as they could be, talking to each other, building off of each other. And so we have sometimes actions being taken that are contradictory, or that actually just could be boosted if they were partnered or working together. So those are some of the things that we pulled out. And so we started looking for a model. And there are many different models for change out there, and came across this one, and this may actually be familiar for some of you. This is coming out of Stanford, and it's called the collective impact model. And you may be familiar with it because it is the model that Vibrant Hawaii, who knows Vibrant Hawaii? No, how do you do? It's the same model that they use for their organization. And so there's 5 conditions of this collective impact model. And the intention of the collective impact model is to create lasting and effective social change. So the 5 components are everybody agrees on the problem and has a shared vision. There's a common agenda. We have agreed upon shared measurement of how performance is measured and how accountability happens. Activities are mutually reinforcing. So we're working together, we're partnering, coordinating through joint planning. Continuous communication is happening between all of the different stakeholders. And then there's got to be some sort of backbone organization that provides that administrative support. So having identified, okay, these are the gaps, here's a potential plan, then there's something else that came along. And you're probably wondering, why is there a little unicorn in the corner? And I do that in honor of Doug. One of the things that happened was the Inflation Reduction Act and the bilateral infrastructure law. And as Doug likes to refer to them, these are unicorn funds. These are unicorn funds dedicated to building sustainability, resilience, addressing climate change that we are probably never going to see again in our lifetime. They're really special. And so with that, the group that was working on this felt a tremendous sense of urgency, not only the urgency already that's coming from the issues related to climate change and sustainability, but a tremendous sense of responsibility to be well positioned to go after these funds, these special unicorn funds. Next slide, please. And so that's how Bill 48 was developed, and the decision to create an office of sustainability, climate equity, resilience, otherwise known as OSCER, came to fruition. What Bill 48 proposes is that at the office, at the cabinet level office, there would be a cabinet level office under the managing director. We felt it was really important that the administrator of this office be in the room as the cabinet was making those important decisions. They had to have the credibility, the gravitas to actually task the other departments with activities. They had to have the level of accountability to be a spokesperson for the county at this level. And so we felt it was really important to be at the level of the administration. We've aligned the additional positions within the office to align with the collective impact model. So the administrator, of course, will be working on developing that common shared agenda. Then you would have a data visualization specialist and analyst that would be working on the shared metrics and making sure that we're sharing all that both internally and externally. Mutually reinforcing activities would be ensured by a policy analyst that would make sure our code is in alignment with our goals, as well as a grant specialist that would make sure that we have the funding to implement the changes we want to. And then finally, we have an outreach specialist that would be responsible for that continuous communication. And of course, as a whole, OSCER is that backbone organization, provides the support. These are all the things that we're hoping OSCER will do once it is enacted. I think I've covered a lot of it. There is the link down there to see, that was the one thing I missed. See this, I actually told people they could submit testimony, but it's not needed because I'm very happy to say it passed today. Bill OSCER is in office. And you guys, because we had a training immediately after council today, you guys are the first people I get to celebrate with. And so behind you, there is a Target bag. And I didn't think it was appropriate to bring champagne, but I did bring sparkling grape juice for anyone who would like to join me in a toast after we're done with ours. So thank you very much, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Chair Kimball. Great work. Thank you for working on that with your team and the rest of the council on this project. So, and kind of really to continue this talk about sustainability and resilience, we wanted to also hear from our state partners too. So we're grateful to have our next guest, Danielle Bass, who is our state sustainability coordinator with the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development, to kind of really explore some of these similar details, but at the state level. Danielle was a major contributor to the state 2050 sustainability plan. And so Danielle, thank you for joining us here this evening. We have you online with our guests here in Waimea, and you're calling from Honolulu, I believe. So please take it away. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, James. Thank you, Patty. Thank you, Chair, Council members, Doug. Thank you so much for thinking of me, inviting me. It's definitely an absolute privilege to be in this space with you, even though I'm not physically there. I'm just so happy to just spend time with you, and thank you for this opportunity to share what we at the state are doing. And I'm really looking forward to partnerships with Hawaii County, and congratulations for the passage and the development of OSCER. It's really exciting. And I'm just seeing so much alignment and potential. Could you share the screen so I can go over the presentation?
Did I send you the other one?
Oh, yes, you need me to play,
Yeah,
okay.
do you mind?
Oh, no problem, I just have to get it up.
Sorry. No problem. While we have some time, I was blown away by the chair's presentation. I absolutely love the definitions. They're absolutely important. Common definitions help us succeed as we figure out what and articulate what a sustainable climate resilient future is. I'll make even a note that in the Hawaii State Planning Act, in Chapter 226 of the Hawaii Revised Statutes, we actually also define sustainability and climate. So that's been longstanding, and I often use those definitions as well. I'm sparing you tonight in this presentation, so I won't be using those. And I saw a lot of familiar photos of our impacts, and I promise that Chair and I did not coordinate our presentations tonight. You're going to see a lot of very similar photos, and why that's exciting for me is it just shows that we're in so much alignment, and I'm really excited by the potential of that. So without further ado, let me just quickly go over this presentation. I'm going to be providing a quick, pretty high level overview of Hawaii's climate sustainability efforts, and we're going to take a look at our impacts, the expansion of the State Office of Planning and Sustainable Development, the creation of the branch I lead, the statewide sustainability branch, a summary of our state statutory and sustainability and climate targets. I don't say goals, I say targets. These are statutory mandates. The state of Hawaii's work toward adaptation, as well as what the 2050 plan includes. So I'm going to be quick. This is a very high level overview, and we're not going to go into the weeds of the plan. Next slide, please. So again, we've seen the impacts. We see climate impacts right now, right? We're seeing extreme flooding, extreme rainfall, we're seeing drought, we're seeing wildfire. We're seeing the loss of our own infrastructure going into the ocean thanks to sea level rise. We're seeing hurricanes and tropical storms impact our own private properties. So we're seeing climate change now. We're going to see more impacts in the future, and that's why planning, coordination, and implementation matter. Next slide, please. So I said planning. For those who recall, there was a State Office of Planning, and now we are now known as the State Office of Planning and Sustainable Development. Next slide, please. So what does that mean? That means that in 2021, there was an expansion of our office where not only did our staff work on land use, statewide comprehensive planning, ocean and coastal policy management, GIS services, but we were all at transit-oriented development and smart growth, but we were also expanded to include and take on the work of the former OEQC, the Office of Environmental Quality Control, which is now our environmental review mandate. We've also expanded to work on climate adaptation and sustainability planning and coordination statewide, as well as are mandated to review and coordinate sea level rise adaptation statewide. Finally, through this expansion, the State Land Use Commission is now attached to us. So it's one large agency in this expansion, though we do respect land use firewalls. Next slide, please. So going into the statewide sustainability branch, this branch was similarly established in the expansion of the OPSD. And this branch is mandated to develop, organize, and promote policies and programs to assist in meeting Hawaii's numerous sustainability and climate policies and goals. So I'm going to go and do a deeper dive into that. There's quite a few targets that I mentioned before. The other major task that this branch and office is mandated to perform is pretty much make recommendations regarding proposed legislation, regulatory changes, policy modifications to the governor, the legislature, government agencies, private entities, and other bodies. So we work for everybody for the purpose of encouraging activities that best sustain, protect, enhance the quality of the environment, the economy, and the community, not only for the present, but for the future benefit of the people of Hawaii. Next slide, please. So I talked about the targets. There's a lot of them. Get ready. These are our state statutory sustainability and climate mandates that we need to achieve by a certain time frame. Next slide. So you've heard in 2022 that there was a ban on coal power. So that law was passed in 2020. By the year 2022, at the end of the year, the state of Hawaii had to conclude all coal burning. That's an example of one of our statutory mandates. And the good thing is we met that statutory mandate. So next slide, please. Now, as we look forward, there are quite a few 2030 targets, 2035 targets, 2045 targets, and 2050 targets. I'm sure quite a few of you have heard many examples of these targets. So in the agricultural space for sustainability, when we think about the 2030 legal targets, there is a mandate to double food production and increase food exports statewide by the year 2030. You'll see that I've included statutory citations for your reference. Please feel free to take a look at any of these laws if you're interested. Also, by 2030, our State Department of Education is also mandated to serve 30% of local food in their meals for the benefit of our keiki by the year 2030. Similarly to the farm to school target, we have multiple farm to state targets in which our departments of education, public safety, health, defense, and the University of Hawaii are mandated to procure local food that is that is consisted of locally sourced products. And there are very specific definitions in those laws. What I appreciate of this law is there's actually benchmarks embedded within the law. For example, we need to achieve 18% of food procured by any of these state departments, as I mentioned, to be locally sourced by 2030, 34% by 2040, and so on. Next slide, please. Also, a statutory mandate by the year 2030 is there is a greenhouse gas emissions limit in which we need to be 50% below our statewide greenhouse gas emissions in 2005 by 2030. So let me break that down a bit. You're going to see in this slide a chart in which there was a previous law. By the year 2020, the state of Hawaii was required to hit a greenhouse gas emissions level that was equal to our 1990 greenhouse gas emissions level. The great news is we hit it. You'll see in that chart that we've hit that target. So now that we've hit that target, the state legislature and our policymakers and our governors have now leaned into more progress and how we can continue to reduce those greenhouse gas emissions. So now we need to be 50% or lower than the 2005 emission level by 6.5 years away. So next slide, please. Also, by the year 2030, there is a state mandate on state fleet vehicles. I'm going to be very clear with that. State fleet vehicles, that all 100% of these vehicles be zero emission vehicles by the end of the year in 2030. So again, that's only for state fleets. It doesn't impact private fleets or any personal vehicles. This is an internal state mandate for all state fleet vehicles to be zero emission. Next slide, please. Moving on to 2035, that was quite a bit. That was about 5 targets we need to achieve in 2030. That's quite a bit for our state to work on in the next 6.5 years. By the year 2035, all University of Hawaii campuses statewide, as well as all Department of Education campuses statewide, must achieve net zero in our energy use by the year 2035. Now, if you're interested in learning more about that, there are actually annual reports submitted by both the Department of Education as well as the University of Hawaii. It's given to the legislature at the end of every year to show that their progress towards these goals. One exciting, or actually 2 exciting things I'd like to share is that 2 of our University of Hawaii campuses actually achieved this net zero energy use in the year 2020 and 2021 during the COVID pandemic shutdown. So while they were doing that, they did the investments to actually achieve these net zero goals. So we do have already net zero campuses in our state. Next slide, please. As we talk about state facilities and campuses, we're also talking about the sustainable development of state facilities. There's long been a law that if there are any new developments of new state buildings, they must be required to be at least LEED silver. There's also some requirements for new public residences to be energy efficient and provide solar water heating, natural ventilation. Another exciting development is just a week ago, a law was enacted in which the design for state buildings also maximizes energy and water efficiencies, energy generation potential, as well as those state buildings and their construction use building materials that reduce the carbon footprint of the project. Next slide, please. So we've heard a lot about 2030, 2035. I know there's been a lot of publicity in terms of 2045 targets. And it was mentioned a little bit earlier in the evening that there is a lot of awareness towards our 100% renewable portfolio standard to be 100% renewable energy generated by the year 2045. Similarly to some of those other targets, this one also has benchmarks in which by the year 2030, 40% of all energy statewide needs to be renewable generated and so forth. So by the year 2045, there's an accountability with the Hawaiian electric industry as well as the KIUC when they report to the Public Utilities Commission that they meet these goals. Similarly, by the year 2045, a concurrent law was actually enacted not a few years ago, which mandates a zero emissions clean economy target by 2045. That is the carbon neutrality law. Essentially, we are actually tasked to sequester more atmospheric carbon and greenhouse gases than we are emitted. So you might hear net negative in terms of negative carbon and more sequestration in terms of the carbon emissions. So again, we're targeting a carbon neutrality law by 2045, and we need to just go below that and sequester more than we emit by 2045. So, you know, it's dependent on how you look at it. At the end of the day, we need to reduce all of our greenhouse gases by 2045 to meet this law. And finally, next slide, please. In terms of 2045, an unsung hero of one of the many statutory mandates in terms of sustainability and climate is a requirement in which all state and county facilities by the year 2045 must use 100% reclaimed water. There is an exception there that it is except for the drinking and other potable water needs, but besides those two uses, those state and county facilities, all state and county facilities are mandated by this statute to use 100% reclaimed water. This I tried to bring more awareness to. It's not often discussed, and so I wanted to share this with you. Our final statutory target is on the next slide, which is the 2050 statutory target, the cesspool mandatory upgrade, which again requires the upgrade, conversion, or sewer connection of all cesspools statewide, which is roughly 88,000. Our Department of Health is working diligently to address and fulfill this target. Next slide, please. So what is the state of Hawaii doing in terms of adapting to climate change? We'll go into that in the next slide. A bunch of plans. So that's wonderful, right? I'm a planner, I'm an urban planner, and I hate it when plans sit on a shelf, but I love having a plan so that we can all collectively have that common vision so that we can achieve those goals. So over the last 5-6 years, between 2017 and 2021, we've had the coral bleaching recovery report, we've had the sea level rise vulnerability plan, the hazard mitigation plan, a managed retreat report, a state coastal highway program report, a DOT published, the ocean resources management plan, an Oahu South Shore Promenade coastal open study plan, the Hawaii Highways Climate Adaptation Action Plan, which DOT recently published, as well as the 2050 plan. So I'm very excited as an urban planner here in the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development that our plans are aligning and coordinating for a common vision for the state of Hawaii's sustainable and climate resilient future. Next slide, please. And for those who are interested in the coordination and planning of Hawaii's sea level rise work, just as a quick overview over the last 6-7 years, of course, the state of Hawaii has created the State Climate Commission. This is an advisory commission comprised of state and county officials to discuss climate mitigation and adaptation. We published the sea level rise vulnerability adaptation report, which actually brought awareness that an estimated 22,000 residents will be displaced and 28 miles of coastline will become impassable by a 3.2-foot sea level rise in mid-century. We launched a viewer that's available online. We've mandated that environmental assessments and EISs are required to include sea level rise. The next year, the Land Use Commission adopted sea level rise rules. The CZM is mandated to include sea level rise as well. In 2021, there was some exciting development in which there was a mandatory seller disclosure for real estate transactions, which requires the mandatory disclosure of any private or personal private property in a sea level rise exposure area. That became law and effective in May 2022. Similarly, the DOT is required to plan for the sea level rise, even though they've already been working on it diligently for years before then. And a recent law was just enacted in 2022, allowing the counties to transfer their development rights and expand that to include sea level rise. Next slide, please. So just a quick overview of the 2050 plan. This is, of course, the state of Hawaii's official sustainability Climate Strategic Action Plan that was passed by law in 2019 and is codified in our Hawaii State Planning Act. Next slide. Just to give you a quick overview of what our office worked on here, we analyzed about 150 state laws, state plans. We took a look at the published county climate and sustainability plans. Again, this is back in 2021 and in 2020 and 2021. We incorporated the Aloha Plus Challenge, the Sustainable Hawaii Initiative, to really aggregate all of that data, all of that planning, all of those policies into a more concise, organized methodology to align with the United Nations Sustainable Development Framework and really bring this output through the Hawaii 2050 Sustainability Plan. So it's the UN SDGs in alignment with all of our planning and policies and initiatives with more Hawaii values. So next slide, please. Again, I mentioned that we reviewed over 150 laws and plans, and it was quite an interesting and exciting analysis for our team. And this plan is mandated to be renewed every decade. So every 10 years, the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development is required to update the Hawaii 2050 plan. With this publication, we were looking at the 2020-2030 timeframe. So with this decade of action, we're recommending 8 focus areas. They're listed in front of you. And in those 8 focus areas, there are 38 strategies, and we can break them down to 262 recommended actions. But that's a whole nother presentation, and that's when we get deep into the weeds of this plan, and I'm going to spare you all for it tonight. But in terms of, the high level takeaways, what we want to see, what we're recommending to see, which is in alignment with all of our plans and policies and initiatives, is that we really need to focus on promoting a sustainable economic recovery, right? We're coming out of COVID. We need to see and support more local ag and green workforce development and regenerative tourism. Reduce greenhouse gas emissions, improve climate resilience, advance sustainable communities through adaptations and practices, as well as sustainable development in buildings and infrastructure. Advancing equity, Chair covered it, so I fully support that. We need to lift up equity while we're also pursuing our sustainable and climate resiliency future. We need to institutionalize sustainability through government, just like what County of Hawaii did with the OSCER and what we're seeing in all of the other counties. We need to institutionalize the collaboration to address sustainability, climate, and the greening of government operations while we preserve our natural environment. And of course, as we tackle sustainability and our climate challenges, we need to perpetuate our traditional ecological knowledge and values. Next slide, please. So this is the call to action. This is for all of us. What can we do? These targets and plans sound like very long-term horizons, but we can act now by practicing what we preach. And we can do this through transitioning our energy uses, our water uses, our waste uses, and our own transportation ways through energy efficiencies, clean renewable energy opportunities, zero emission vehicles, adopting electric vehicles and hydrogen vehicles when your car breaks down and you need to buy a new one. In terms of water, I know I'm talking to the folks in Hawaii County, so I know that many of you are practicing water conservation, recharge, and water recycling. In terms of waste, we need to reduce single-use items. We need to reuse what we can. And in transportation, of course, adopting zero-emission vehicles, multimodal shifts through alternative transportation, and pedestrian and bike access, as well as carpooling. All of this is reliant on collaboration, working together to achieve this UN's decade of action. The countdown to 2030 starts now. We're 6.5 years away, and we need to make progress towards these goals with a realistic timeline. We have lots of work to do to achieve this common, sustainable, and climate resilient future for Hawaii. So let's work together and get going. Next slide, please. Again, I just want to mahalo the Waimea Community Association and these multiple organizations and institutions that have recognized and awarded our state climate and sustainability plan. If you have any questions regarding our plan, please visit hawaii2050.hawaii.gov. Mahalo for your time. Aloha.
Mahalo, Danielle. Thank you so much for being here with us this evening. As you can see, there's a lot of interplay between the state and the county and efforts that we can achieve together. I'd like to have the chair back up here and then we have Danielle on the screen. We'll kind of move into a bit of the Q&A portion if that's okay. So we can watch you as well. So I'll open the floor for questions here for about the next 15 minutes. If I have a couple questions here.
So I would add to that, I know it's been a lot in the Texas area, because that's what real change happens. Doug and I have a lot of really great conversations about change and you know, changing the county is like trying to, it doesn't, what you gotta be doing is you gotta be down there and we can think we're power enough you need to, and we've got to think about the tools we have. Policy is one of those. So yeah, we are focusing how the ecosystem works and taking into account the lesson. And I don't know if you want to add from the state perspective, but I'm sure you both will. Can you hear us? Okay.
They're looking to do as a part of their integrated grid plan moving forward, and how we and they are trying to work together to in fact take care of some of those things. For example, we know that EVs are going to take more power from the grid, right? So that isn't something we're just thinking about. It's something that we've been talking about for a while.
Thank you.
And then I just want to offer Danielle a chance to answer that as well, if you'd like. Repeat the
I'm
question.
so sorry. You know, Doug looked like he was very confident with that answer. I didn't hear the question. So 100% support the confidence given off by Doug. Good job. I was just watching the body language over here.
If that's okay, we'll move on. Mr. Khan, yes.
Yeah, what is the county doing to provide more hydrogen fueling stations around the island? Because we're such a big island. We just have one hydrogen fueling station in Kona. So how can we get more hydrogen fueling station, which would in fact, support the importation of hydrogen vehicles here.
You want to talk about the?
I'll talk about that.
Yeah.
So, the initial answer to that is, it's gonna take a while to get there. I guess the good part, the part where we're happy to talk about is, that we know that we can make hydrogen here. We have the source, the generation, capability to make it here. We want to make it here. The distribution, network for that is a question. What is the right way to do that? There's some questions that have to be answered. Do we use, some of the pipeline things that we see that are currently on Oahu, for example? Do we set it up in containers? Do we use fueling stations? Those are questions, and they have not been answered yet. So we have work to do on the distribution elements associated with that, and that's going to take. Well, if I gave you a number of years, I'd probably be lying, but I'd like to say we could get there by 2030. I think we can get there by 2030. Before that will be more difficult.
Or how about just starting the hydrogen generating plants around the island? So I mean, that's the basic thing that we need, right? The generation of the hydrogen.
That's right. And so we have plans in process, more than plans. We actually have some work in progress beyond plans where we would be able to use county resources to generate hydrogen. And so that requires some money, but the money's actually there. It's now actually within the contractual process as a part of the charging and fueling infrastructure. We have a couple contracts that are in work right now, and we have also gone after the charging and fueling infrastructure grants that are coming out of I think this was out of the bipartisan infrastructure law. So we've applied for that. We're going to see if we're going to get any of that money.
So, and in addition, we're actively working on, expansion of the battery electric vehicle charging infrastructure. So that is ongoing as well.
Electric vehicles that are dirty, and hydrogen is pure clean because we're generating our own electricity. We have solar panels that can generate the hydrogen. We're importing batteries that has to be disposed of in the end, which is going to be a super enormous cost.
Again, none of this is being done, as you know, none of this is being done in a vacuum, because everything that we don't do that is associated with clean, we're using fossil fuel. So anything that transitions us closer to increasing our percentage of renewables and towards zero emissions is important.
And a large portion of the bilateral infrastructure law has been dedicated to dealing with the recycling of the batteries, determining other mechanisms to create those batteries that are cleaner, more just. And, I think that as Doug was saying, this is an ecosystem, this is a whole picture. There is not a one size fits all solution, but we are stepping towards the right direction, which is a fossil fuel free transportation economy.
Nobody wants to take the batteries.
Danielle, do you want to chime in a little bit? I'll give you a little opportunity here at the state level.
There was some legislation passed, it was in 2022, in which it's tasking, I believe it was the HNEI, to start researching those recyclable opportunities so that we are not planning and implementing in that void. As you say, we want to definitely find opportunities to reuse some of those batteries, especially as we transition and pivot. So I know HNEI will be coming out with a report on that real soon.
What efforts are there in terms of what efforts are there being done? Species.
One of the first things with respect to agriculture, Department of Agriculture as a whole gets to, and the amount that goes to the species is just a little like that. And so, first of all, is prioritizing the investment in addressing this issue, addressing agriculture in general, agriculture infrastructure, this particular issue of, and some of the things that we're looking potential to utilize the wild animals and make sure that they're safe and that they can be that's one of the things that is the policy that we're looking into. Other aspects of this has to do with making determination, where is it better to spend and to keep out, and where is it better to move. And one of the things that I want to highlight here is that, and this applies to a lot of things, is not there's not ever a one size fits all for all these things, and that's why having those place-based decision making in some areas is really cost effective, and the best way to address the problem is disciplinary tactic and other areas to focus on either population control or eradication.
Danielle, are you connecting with us? Okay, yeah, Doug, if you want to come a little bit closer, it might help a little bit too.
I don't bite.
We can move on to another question if I don't, do another question over here? Yes.
I'm one of your constituents living in rural area of Honoka'a, and there's a lot of residents out there that are completely off grid. The electric vehicles are wonderful, but scare the heck out of me because I can't generate enough electricity on my property at a cost-effective method to charge one, let alone two or three vehicles. Anybody got any comments on that, or is this even being thought about, or
Oh yeah. I mean, in fact, there was actually a story on NPR this morning about this very issue, which is that folks need to know that there is reliable public charging available, and that there's cost-effective solutions for at-home charging, so that you can purchase your own, at-home charging that is connected to some sort of alternative to the grid. Maybe it's additional solar panels or whatever, more batteries. Yeah. So there is a significant investment from the Inflation Reduction Act in terms of creating more public charging availability. As Doug said, we've been working on some grants with that as well. There's stuff coming in from the state, I believe, what was it, 2.5 million for infrastructure. Yes, please state. 2.5, am I right?
Yeah, you're sounding right. And I want to just chime in that even with the recent enactments of the federal laws, there's a 30% tax credit, federal tax credit that's provided to all taxpayers in terms of 30% of all the expenses you've made in terms of photovoltaics, battery transitions, labor, all of that you will recoup in the installation. And then that tax credit will last about 10 years or so. So that's where what we're seeing in terms of federal investment from IRA.
Yeah, and I think you've identified another key issue. We have the housing issue, the workforce issue, and then we have the rapid aging of our population. We're estimated to be by 2035 more than 1 in 3 over 60 in the state, and that's going to have a major impact on the types of services that are needed, the workforce that is needed. And that's why when we talk about sustainability, we're talking about that complete picture. There's the economic piece, there's the environmental piece, and then there's the social piece. And, you know, to your point, and to the point that was made earlier about the kind of unsexy stuff in the weeds that we have to do, the other bill that was passed today had to do with our agricultural tax process. And one of the reasons that agricultural land is difficult to find and is unavailable, a lot of it is tied up in speculation. Hawaii is a very nice place to park your money because you're going to pay very little in taxes and it's going to guarantee to go up in value. And so we've made modifications today, in fact, to our property tax calculations on ag property to ensure that there's less speculation happening on ag land, because people aren't going to get those tax benefits if they're not actually doing agriculture, if it's just speculation. So yeah, it's something that we're aware of in this larger piece.
Yeah, if I could, actually more than aware of, when we submitted for one of the Build Back Better Regional Challenges awards, and we got phase 1, but we weren't able to get the large money in phase 2. But part of that was the development of, we took from the food study that was done in 2021, and that provided the basis for, you know, our application. What we do and what we're looking at are what are the unintended consequences to some degree of some of the decisions that we make. We know that housing is required, right? If we don't have housing, it's too expensive. So you need to have more volume housing if you in fact actually want to bring more workers here, or if you even want to keep our kids here, right? You have to have that housing if you even intend to bring the potential for diversified economy. More revitalization of the economy means different types of things could be associated with the large driver that we know of tourism, but we also have creative industries because we have a lot of talent on this island. We know that agriculture is important, but there are folks that would tell you in agriculture that we should be focused on the big providers, because I'll tell you that 7% is contributing over 50% of the revenues, right? Well, we have a lot of volume here where we have intended, what we said is, we actually have a lot of farmers on this island. We need to lean into that volume and help them with their production, because if they know that they can produce, then they're actually going to grow more because the demand is there. So we're looking at that as the way forward. But you have to have the, for the larger farmers that you have on this island, you have to have some way of helping them have work or farm housing for the workers that they have on there. So that is a continual conversation we have. These things sometimes look like they're actually in opposition to each other. So we have to kind of work through what are the directions that we can go to. So on the tax rates, that's terrific in a particular way. Others would tell you that that's not the way to go. But we have to actually move forward in a way that's going to allow us to, yes, grow more, but understand that we're never going to get to 100% food security, because that actually demands too much of us. Energy, by the way, and I have these conversations with our friends from utility all the time. If we can reduce, when we reduce the costs of energy that we get, because we're going to be bringing less fossil fuels, so we'll be connected to less of the avoided costs associated with the fossil fuel, and we're using affordable, renewable, green energy here, that has the domino effect of affecting then the ability to make farming less expensive, which means that we can grow more. And then the idea would be that the standard of living here is going to be less, which should then allow our kids to be able to stay here or come back. So those are the kinds of ways that we're trying to look at this.
You want to take one more question here, right?
I have a short question, a long question. The short question is, if people want to get involved with this, how do they do that?
So thank you for that question. And I'm going to just sidetrack real quick, because I want to use Doug's example as kind of a model of what we're talking about here with OSCER. You know, we have the report, we have this assessment that was done on the ag system here. There were recommendations in this report. Doug's office, R&D, is exploring them. And then ultimately what would happen is OSCER would, as we did the policy development for Bill 44 today with the ag tax bill, 44 was the tax bill.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that would be some of the effort that OSCER would do, would be to coordinate that policy change and also coordinate the interactions with the other organizations out there working in the ag space based on what R&D has identified as priorities. But to get involved, the very next step for the OSCER process is to hire the administrator, and the administrator will be hired by mayoral appointment. It's something we debated a lot. Mayoral appointment. So, if that's something that you're interested in, be putting your resumes together. If you know people that you think would be ideal, we really want a rock star for this position because it's going to take somebody that's got a lot of great skills. So that's the first step. And then OSCER we are working on a couple of different things in advance. I think Harvey left, but we are working on a sustainability database. So if you or folks that are in an organization that is working in the sustainability space, we are putting that together and working with Esri to create a volunteer interface. That's something we need to talk about because I know you guys have some stuff too. And then the other thing that we're working on is more around the geolocating of the different activities that are going on in the island, so that folks are coming here and they want to plant trees within a 20-mile radius of where they're staying. They'll know where to do that. So if you know people or you're with an organization that you think in some way are involved in the sustainability pace, we want to connect with you so that when OSCER gets started, they've already got this network established.
Okay.
I moved here over 30 years ago. We had this great thing that happened here called the Ohana. Why don't they bring the Ohana back so you can have a second residence on the same lot with you? So you can house your elderly, your kids that can't afford their own place, whatever. Let's allow a second residence on the same lot. Let's bring that back.
That is on my agenda. The first thing to do is we've got to turn off the tap on short-term vacation rentals, because if we open it up to build Ohana units and they just turn into short-term vacation rentals, we have not solved anything. So I'm literally working on getting that tap turned off.
Great.
And step 2 is bringing the Ohanas back. So we're on it.
Yeah.
You have one
Yeah,
more question, Mary Beth?
Yeah, mine is, I'm gonna say this is for Danielle. I noticed, Danielle, that a lot of the goals that the state has are very lofty, particularly in terms for the Department of Education. And so, if the expectation is the Department of Education will have 100% carbon neutral schools and will be able to have 50% local produce, does that mean that we should expect to see an increased funding the Department of Education, considering that many of their buildings now are not quite at standards, and yet we want to turn them into very important carbon neutral buildings, or is that going to be funded at the state level? Sorry,
No, great question. Thank you, Mary Beth. Appreciate that. Actually, and that's a very important thing I really tell our legislators and our policymakers, is that when we discuss and define these targets, we pass a law to mandate something 20 years away. It seems, I'm a millennial first off. So, 20 years away is still, I'm not going to be retired yet, right? I'm still going to have to work on that 20 years from now, right? So I can see it from different perspectives. And I think from my point of view in this role as state sustainability coordinator, when we're looking at policy making for the state of Hawaii, we need accountability, right? And so when we're saying we want to do something, whether it's Department of Education or it's cesspools, when we are making these mandates, and I've made it very clear to our policymakers and our governors, is that we need to fund and we need to act, right? I understand I'm a planner and plans are wonderful. We need to mobilize the plans, coordinate, and put them into action, right? And so to me, it's a trifecta. we set the policy, we set the plan, and we fund, run with the ball and implement it, right? And so right now, what we're seeing, and from my point of view as sustainability coordinator, we need more investments in that infrastructure. If we're going to put mandates on the Department of Education to be net zero in energy use by 2030, then we need to fund them with those resources. Same goes for the farming community as well as the Department of Education in terms of their farm to school goal to be 30% locally sourced by 2030, and all the other departments that are mandated the same by 2030, 2040, and 2050. So we need to, it's about, you know, I read the news article in the West Hawaii today. James, you said walking the walk, talking the talk. We need to practice what we're preaching now, and we need to fund these sustainability and climate resiliency targets and goals with funding from our governments, and we need implementers like Doug, like me, like so many others in our governments to run with the ball and get it done.
Amen.
Thank you, Danielle. We're gonna close it there if that's okay, because I really want to thank Director Doug Adams for County Hawaii Research and Development, Chair Kimball for being here, Danielle Bass, thank you for joining us online. And really, you can see there's a lot. We could have stayed here a lot longer. Probably could stay another hour or so talking about sustainability and all the different pieces that play a role in this and what we have to deal with in the future. So grateful for you three for being here, addressing our community questions. So thank you very much.
Thank you, James, because this community really cares about these issues. You know, I've been to these before I was in this position. I've now been here a number of times, and you always have folks that care, ask really important and hard-hitting questions and make us think, but then the ability for us to make sure that we let you know what we know, and sometimes what we don't know, is also important in these gatherings. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
So as we kind of close up here, just have a couple of quick announcements. Thank you for your patience, everyone. It's been a little long, but I really appreciate your attention, the details, and really being a part of this conversation. Mahalo nui to all of our presenters for joining us here this evening, for taking the time, for joining the community, update our viewers and our attendees here, and welcoming opportunities to engage with the community. Thank you all to our viewers online, of course. Join us on the live stream, and attendees able to join later in as well. So thank you very much. Thank you for joining us here in person. Really good to see all of you here with us. We're grateful for all of your support. And mahalo to our friends here at Juju's house. Can't do without them. So thank you very much. And you're always welcome to visit, rewatch these recordings up on our Facebook page or our YouTube channel. And catch them at your leisure. If you miss some of the details, you can always catch it later. So it's an amazing little thing we have here. All the intricacies that Director Adams throws out there. It's really challenging sometimes to pick up everything, but it's amazing all the details on the PowerPoints and whatnot. So thank you very much. Our next town meeting, we are August 3rd is our date. We're planning to once again connect with our Waimea primary and secondary schools and those leaders of those schools as they look ahead to their next academic year, as we've done over the past couple of years to kind of touch base with them, see how they're doing. And we look forward to having you all join us that evening. So with that, I'll say on behalf of the WCA board, mahalo nui. I wish you good health, be well, aloha. Thanks everyone.